Hello and welcome to Signals from the Hill, a podcast about comics from Avery Hill Publishing. I'm Ricky Miller, co-publisher at Avery Hill, and today I'm joined by Kat Chapman
Hello.
and Kristyna Baczynski.
Hello.
And we're going to be discussing a major new exhibition at the Mercer Gallery in Harrogate. It explores the history of Avery Hill and features original art from a number of our creators, including Kat and Kristyna. The exhibition starts on Saturday, the 18th of October, which is tomorrow as we're recording, and carries on until the end of April next year. So first, just to give you a bit of background, this exhibition has been in a gestation since we first started talking about it with Thought Bubble and Karen Southworth from the Mercer Gallery back in September 2022. And finally, it's happening. We can say that for sure because we've seen Kat's been there. She's seen them setting up.
It's all
we've seen
real.
photos. Yep, it is definitely happening. So to give you the blurb, this is a fun and inspiring exhibition all about how comics are made. You'll see amazing artwork and finished books by some of the UK's top comic creators, learn how stories go from ideas to printed pages, and discover the different ways artists work. Whether you love graphic novels or just cool drawings, there's something here for everyone, including life-size covers, comic covers to explore. The featured artists are Kristyna Baczynski, Tim Baird, Katriona Chapman, Charlotte Christensen, Tom Humberson, B. Muir, Owen D. Pomeroy, Claire Scully, J. Webster Sharp, Rachel Smith, Lizzie Stewart, Lucy Sullivan, Zoe Farragut, Donya Todd, Tilly Walden, and George Wallersall, plus a few other surprise ones too. It's been curated in partnership with Avery Hill Publishing and Thought Bubble Comic Art Festival. So that's the blurb. Let's get down into the nitty-gritty of it. So Kat, let's start with your part in the project. You've been running it from the Avery Hill point of view. How have you found the experience?
It's been a lot of fun. It's been quite a lot of work as well. But it's been really, really, really nice working with them. The Mercer have been brilliant. Thought Bubble's been brilliant. Everyone has really, Kristyna. Um, And I was saying to Karen, the curator that we've been working with at the gallery, that I've been involved with exhibitions in the past on a small scale where it's very DIY and you kind of have the use of a space, but you're doing everything yourself. So you're doing framing and lighting and you've got to figure it all out on your own. So this was fun for me to kind of do all the development work and stuff and then hand it off to a team that actually are really good at doing all the practical stuff, and I didn't have to worry about that part. So because they're such a, professional gallery, everything looks immaculate. Kristyna did get to pop in and have a little look on
Oh,
Monday when I
cool.
was up. Yeah, so we had a little sneak peek. So everything just looks amazing. So that was nice not to have that side of it to worry about. But yeah, there's been a lot of planning and a lot of thinking and sort of developing ideas.
Yeah, I've just seen a small fraction of that. You've been, yeah, there's been lots of emails and chats and meetings and things, hasn't there?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that the thing we started with was coming up with a list of artists that we've worked with Avery Hill that we wanted to show the work of. And it was a lot of it came down to just getting a mix of work and a mix of approaches and a mix of people who have sort of work in traditional media and artists that work digitally and artists that work both ways, because we thought that would be an interesting range to show in the exhibition. So the first thing we kind of did was work with those artists on coordinating what pieces they might want to show from their books, what books and individual pages to feature and things. There was a lot of logistics of wall space and what was going to fit in each section and stuff. But yeah, where the artist works traditionally, we've got the original art on display. Where they work digitally, we've organized prints which look really good. And then for people that work both ways, we've often got a sort of comparison where you can see maybe their line art that they do on paper, which is how I worked on my first book. And then you can see a color print of the finished page. So you can kind of see both sides of it. And there's two of the artist sections. They're a little bit different. The Tom Humberstone section works in that way where when we talked to him about his work, he presented me with this folder of just brilliantly organized, 4 stages of each page of his book, from like the rough art stage to the finished line art to the color rough to the finished colored page. And we just thought, well, this would be amazing to show a selection of pages exactly like this, because you can see the development of the page as it's progressed. So we've printed these long panels of his work, where you can see each page as it develops, and that's really cool. And the
Yeah,
other,
I can imagine Tom's was very well organized.
yes,
He is that
extremely.
guy. I remember, like, yeah, I've known him for a while, as you all have as well. And I remember talking to him just about being a freelancer and working from home at one point, and he says that he said that every morning he gets up and he irons a shirt, and he wears it even though he's working from home. So this is the kind of person we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, which is great if you're organizing and you you need people to be
Absolutely, yeah.
on top of things. And the one other section that's slightly different is Tim Bird's section, where we decided we would print one of his books in its entirety across the wall, laid out as a book with double page spreads and everything. So we chose Grey Area from the City to the Sea, which was his book that won the British Comic Awards. I forget which year. But yeah, it looks absolutely incredible. And it's a way, I mean, each artist section, their book is on display and you can flick through it if you want to see the book. But his is kind of laid out huge across the wall, which is a really interesting sort of visual feature.
Oh, cool. So we got all the books
Yes, there's a little
there as
shelf
well.
on each section.
Oh, nice.
Kind
That's
of,
good.
hopefully
That's
they
good.
won't get nicked too quickly.
They're not chained to the wall.
They're not chained. We're just having to trust.
Just
I'm
an
sure
honor
it'll be fine.
system.
Yeah. I think the next stage we got to was bringing on Kristyna and starting to think about the visual, the sort of design and styling and things like that for it. And then Karen at the gallery also had a a designer and a team that she's worked with many times. So she thought the best idea would be for her team to take on the sort of graphic design stuff, for Kristyna to focus on creating a sort of design asset pack, which with typefaces and fonts and things and little visual features that could be used throughout. But also, Kristyna's done some brilliant illustrative pieces that are part of the exhibition as well. Because as well as that showing the artist's work, we wanted to do some little features like we've got a feature on what is comic art, which Kristyna sort of illustrated, and also the progress of a book, sort of from the first idea right through to publication and printing, which we've illustrated as a kind of flow chart. So all that stuff just adds a lot of information for people who might not know much about how all this stuff works, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, one thing I did want to talk about as well was the title of the exhibition, which is Vision and Labour Making Comics, the Art of Avery Hill Publishing. Where did that come from, and what do you think it means?
Well, I think it came from you, Ricky, if I remember
Did it?
right. Yeah.
Was it one? Oh yeah, I think I did a list of, yeah.
But I that one jumped out at me. You came up with a bunch of ideas, and that one jumped out because I thought it captured both sides of making comics, which is number one, the kind of vision part, the creativity part, and then the labor part is just the absolute grind of work that goes into it. So I thought it was quite an apt title. What did you think, Kristyna?
Oh, I think it's perfect. Like, and I think it's reflected well in the show as well, because there's so much creativity. It's, you kind of see the approach of all the different artists, which are all different, even though we're all making the same thing. We're all making comics. We all come at it differently with a different set of skills and produce things that are quite radically different in terms of tone of voice, visual aesthetic, storytelling style, story genre even. So I think the labour part is fascinating for anybody who is into draftsmanship, like draftspersonship, how people kind of approach creating images and stories. Because I think a lot of effort has gone into the exhibition to kind of see the nuts and bolts behind making comics, as well as the finished things. And I love that they're kind of displayed in a fairly like highbrow art space as well. So there's this aspect of the graft of it, like you were saying, just the grind of like churning out page after page. But then there's this literary and like highbrow art aspect in the space, just because it is such a beautiful gallery space. So it's been treated with such care by the Mercer to kind of put it all together, and yourselves obviously, but like the way that it's in their space, which I think it's the first time they've done anything about comics as well. It just, I think it's rad, and yeah, it kind of encompasses everything like the title suggests. But then also like the approach of so many different people is quite like we were saying when we were there on Monday, I was like, if I saw this when I was like 18 and getting into comics, like getting into drawing comics, I would have just like melted into a puddle of satisfaction. It's crazy how cool it, like I like it now, but I'm jaded. I'm, you know, middle-aged jaded woman. No, but like back then it would have been so exciting to see. So I'm hoping that people who are quite kind of new to comics, which again the Mercer has the advantage of because it's not known for putting on comics exhibitions, so yeah, people kind of come into it not really knowing much about comics or just being kind of interested would get so much out of it, and the full breadth of it in terms of creation and creativity.
Yeah, no, I think for me as well, since that title was chosen, it always had a subtext for me about just the publishing side of things as well. Just like the sheer, it sums up Avery Hill a lot to me at the moment as well. It's just like the kind of the ideas, but then the hard work.
The reality, the crushing reality.
Just the logistics, the boring, mundane stuff you just get tied up in, which, yeah, I know, which happens every day, like all parcels not being delivered, people's flights getting cancelled. These are the things that happened yesterday. So,
yeah. I think with comics as well, there's I think a lot of comic artists kind of make the work look very effortless. So a casual observer who's not experienced this kind of work might not appreciate the work that goes into it. And B, I think there is this idea by people that don't necessarily know graphic novels of the kind that we make, that cartooning is very fast and easy and simple. And I think that's something that we kind of address in this, is showing the range of work and the amount of work.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of that is due to people's exposure to comics being like the Beano, and not that these are effortless things, but the fact they come out like weekly, or you get daily comic strips in newspapers, or monthly comics. So people tend to think, oh, these get churned out, it happens really fast, but there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes on behind the scenes.
And as I just wanted to say one other thing, as Kristyna was saying about, we both said we would have loved this exhibition when we were starting out in this kind of world. And I had this idea when I was preparing some of the content for the exhibition of, is this a bit kind of inside baseball? Is it in too much detail? Some of the stuff I've done one section that's about process on the publishing side and cover design and technical things. And I think that is still quite interesting to people, because a lot of people would know nothing about this, and coming in, if you've got any interest in books at all, or art or anything, I think all that stuff is quite interesting. And definitely starting out as a young illustrator or comic artist, I would have just eaten all this stuff up.
Yeah, and you can take what you want from it. I mean, there's been exhibitions where I've literally just buzzed around looking at the pictures, but then other ones where I've read stuff. And it's a free gallery, isn't it? It's kind of place people pop into and might come back a few times, especially if they're local. And yeah, there's something for everybody.
Mm.
So Kristyna, Kat touched a bit on your role. How did you get? You've been involved with the project basically from the start, really. So how did you get involved?
Yeah, I think it was like kind of beginning of summer 2024, so probably a little bit after like you've been kind of gestating the idea, and maybe after it was kind of confirmed that you were working with the Mercer and Thought Bubble and stuff. But so yeah, last summer, Kat and you asked me to just come up with some like visuals to help like take a selection of work and kind of put it in this Mercer space. So I had some like interior visuals of the Mercer Gallery with another exhibition in, and then I think Kat had done a little bit of development work about like, this is how we could start displaying things on walls. So I just tried to make some cool looking visuals with like a reading space, some kind of book display space, some ideas about like potentially interactive book covers, which was just like really large scale book covers that you could kind of step in front of and take photographs, and then just do some cool stuff with the Avery Hill logo, maybe kind of turning that into like, because it's a fence and a person climbing over it, so like, is there a way that you can make that like person scale and have it in space? So there was like lots of visual developmental stuff, I think, to secure funding and just to get thumbs up from the people that decide whether exhibitions happen, so you know, the gods of the world, to please them. So I'd done that, and then it kind of went quiet for a while, and then it was like green light, and then it was all happening. So once the developmental work was done, that felt very speculative to me as a kind of professional freelance illustrator, the amount of stuff that I do where I'm like, yeah, like that's just a question mark, I don't know if it'll happen. And because like I'd done that work and then didn't hear for a while, I was like, oh, we'll see, it would be so cool if. And then, yeah, once the green light was hit, it was like, right, we need this, and this. So then I kind of started working in earnest on like actual things that you can kind of are a part of the show. So my book's in the show, which is great. So Retrograde Orbit, my sci-fi book, my graphic novels in the show. But then also I worked on the poster like for the Vision and Labour show, which was like, it's one of my favorite things that I've ever drawn, because like I kind of said yes, and I was like, can I actually draw this? It's kind of nuts. So the idea, I got some reference from you guys, and the idea was like this exhibition space that you can kind of see into, a bit isometric, but kind of looking down into a version of a gallery space with lots of comic art on the walls, and then characters milling around inside, but each of those characters is a character from an Avery Hill book. So I was like, please send me a PDF with a picture of everybody, like a lists, please, lists and some reference. So I just kind of drew up, like drafted the kind of space, and then it was just a case of sketching in foreground to background, just this sea of faces and creatures, like all milling around and doing stuff. And it was really, really fun. Like once it got down to that, just checking off characters from a list and kind of drawing them kind of in my style, but still recognizable enough. And then also like figuring out, my favorite thing is figuring out what they would do in the space. So there's certain characters like from Metroland that are all like arty hipsters. They would definitely be at the free champagne and wine at the front of the exhibition, just kind of like caning the free booze. And then, yeah, kind of quieter characters are hidden in the corners here and there. And yeah, so like which characters would chat to each other, and like, yeah, it was just really fun kind of putting all that together.
Yeah, George Wildersaw mentioned how happy he was that his 2120 character was just sitting on his own on a bench. He was like, yes, that's exactly right.
Literally was the first character I drew. I was like, get him on that sofa, not talking to anybody. So yeah, that was fun.
I imagine him muttering to himself basically words.
Yeah.
And everyone's loved that image so much that the gallery have made posters of it. We got to take home some of the merch when we were there.
Oh, have you seen the merch?
Yeah,
Oh wow,
I've got the mug here.
Is it done already? Oh, cool.
And my poster is kind of, I'm trying to flatten the poster.
I'm literally using my coaster. There's magnets. There's A2 and A0 posters, which is crazy. They look really, really good. Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm definitely getting some of that.
I know, same. I was just like feral for it, even though I intimately know the drawing. I was like, yes, I want all of that. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think so. We knew we needed someone to design work on it from the beginning, and I can't remember if we had a list, but I mean, I think you were definitely our first choice, and that was mostly because you just suit Avery Hill and everything we do so well. Like you've got that mixture of kind of indie aesthetic, which you show sometimes, and certainly in your tastes, I know from like what the comics you used to read, but also you can also do kind of clear educational style graphic stuff and kind of more fun stuff too. So and the fact you were local as well, fairly local, was also a big part of it. So yeah, that we were, and then I kind of had that poster in mind right from the very first conversation that I had with the gallery, because I've always wanted. I've got this poster by Michael Fife, or a drawing by Michael Fife and Mike Allred on my wall, which is basically all kind of classic self-published characters in a similar kind of vibe, and that I always wanted something like that for Avery Hill. So yeah, like you did an amazing job on that. Thank you for that. So in terms of like the kind of more educational sides of it, what do you want to tell us about what you did for those?
Yeah, so alongside like the advertising the show with a poster and kind of securing its existence with some developmental work, I've worked on like educational stuff, or kind of informational stuff as well, but they're just huge kind of flow charts, and one's flow chart, which is how a book is made, right from kind of an indie creator making web comics or zines through to talking about contracts to working on like actual pages, scripts, and then through to publishing, print, and distribution. So there's this kind of lots of bubbles with illustrated actions and like a kind of cast of characters, all like illustrated like a comic, like how I draw my comics, with like bubbles and text, but like just showing if somebody had no idea how comics were made, in terms of like the nuts and bolts of the publishing, and like what people do. It's a kind of summary of that, and if I may say so myself, a visually pleasing style. And then there's another large format one, which is like how you read comics. So if somebody hasn't like read a comic before and they're like, I don't know what all these boxes and bubbles mean. It's kind of how like comics function in terms of sequence and panels, and kind of flow and bubbles and sound effects and stuff like that. So that was the hardest one to draw, simply because I basically had to turn myself into Scott McCloud and kind of come up with ways of not only illustrating kind of all aspects of comics, where if like comics can be anything, it's like how do you illustrate how comics can be anything visually? It's like you kind of have to draw them doing everything or enough things that it's like, oh wow, yeah, they can do everything. So there was an element of really kind of trying to figure out how to show that without overloading somebody with just a bombardment of visual information, so it's still kind of easy to read while also kind of effectively visually showing what that aspect of comics can do, and demonstrating it enough that someone can kind of catch in and like figure out what we mean by how you read comics. So there's some really lovely elements of like transformations, so characters turning into plants and then kind of decaying and then kind of sprouting again and becoming characters again. So these kind of cyclical little visual devices that show that comics can be really kind of fluid. So they're kind of simple but quite intricate at the same time. So that was like, I think that's my favorite bit of the exhibition work that I did, simply because it took my brain to make like 105% capacity just to kind of crunch it out. And I did, yeah, I felt like Scott McCloud, which is always a nice feeling.
And yeah, I mean, I like your comics more than I like Scott McCloud's comics as well. So there you go. You're one up. Perfect. You're one up. So and Kat, one other thing I feel like we should talk about that I forgot to mention is George's game.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a brief description of that?
Yeah, I've been sitting here thinking there's a few things I haven't mentioned so far. George's game is quite brilliant. He has created this kind of interactive.
So it's George Wallace, by the way, we should probably say.
the author of 2120, Internet Crusader, and Curses. And his work is very dark and strange, and it has gaming sort of elements in it often, and it is also quite engaged with the digital world and sort of how people exist in the digital world today. And so he's created this whole backstory to this game where a group of art students have vanished, and what's left behind is a comic by each of them, which all the comics are online somewhere. And throughout the exhibition, you can find clues to find these comics and delve into the mystery of what happened to them and why they've gone missing. And he's also brought in this personal element where it's to do with he was teaching at a university in America, which was suddenly closed down in the middle of a term. Everyone lost their jobs. Students were in the middle of their courses and things. So he's brought in some personal stuff about that and about the funding for arts and education and things. There's a lot of interesting stuff to it. But yeah, if you're quite into solving puzzles and you've got an iPhone or any kind of smartphone, you can have a go at that when you're in the gallery. And I'm actually still working on that today. It's really down to the wire, but it's almost ready. There's also some of the other stuff I forgot to mention. There's 2 videos. There's a video of a compilation of drawing time lapses where some of the artists have sent me. Kristyna's got some drawing in there, some video of them working. And there's also a half-hour video, which is little extracts of interviews with all the artists featured that we've done over the years on our podcast and things, which is quite a nice complement to the work because you can really hear each person's voice and hear them talk a little bit about either the particular book that's on display or like how they approach their work in general. And there's also a separate project that Kristyna and I were involved with where we got to curate a room in the gallery. They've got this little side room where we've taken work out of their permanent collection. And we were asked to make a selection and then talk a little bit about why those pieces appealed to us as comic artists and what parallels we could see between these pieces of fine art and the work that we do as comic artists, which was quite a challenge. But
I loved working on that with you. It was really fun. So the last Thought Bubble 2024, just before the Friday before, me and Kat were in the subterranean giant archive under the Mercer Gallery looking at literal treasure. So like mad stuff, costumes, like 4,000-year-old daggers, bits of pottery, like embroidery, paintings, like the side of a wall down to like tiny little prints and weird ceramics, all sorts of stuff. And we kind of...
how were all like the paintings displayed? Were they in like just on wall space or were they in...
They were kind of on racks,
okay.
And those shelves that you have to like crank a cog and then they kind of open up. And then when you want to open up another one, they kind of close and another aperture containing more treasures open. So it was quite like we both felt kind of like sick afterwards because it was so intense, like full to the brim of like, yeah, really overwhelming. Just looking at so much stuff. But that was the kind of start of the selection process for that gallery, the room in the gallery space, which is kind of the companion for the Avery show. And the pieces in it are like really fantastic. Some of them, like as a kind of comics creator and illustrator, my eye when I go to see other art is always coming from a kind of storytelling or character aspect, just because that's my preference, that's my taste, that's what I make, that's what I like. And so it was really nice to use that kind of mindset to make a selection of works that kind of speak to narrative or character, or weird stories or events, and have this kind of suggestion of a before or after, or of some kind of story happening. So yeah, there's one piece in particular that's this kind of medieval, I think it's a contemporary painting of Knaresborough Castle, but it's a medieval style painting of a lady in waiting and a guard, kind of gatekeeper, having a midnight meeting by like flame torchlight, and it's so dastardly and spooky. it just speaks to like, who are they, what are they planning, who's going to get stabbed by like dawn, and it just it really kind of spoke to my like love of stories, that I was just like, who are they, and I want to know everything about them. So there was this real kind of fun aspect to picking pieces and really getting to indulge in that kind of like evocation of fantasy and story that comes from certain images, and just how they can be so exciting like that. So some of them are not, they're not all like murderous like creeps, but that one is, and that was one of my selections. But yeah, there's some that are very kind of gentle and remind me of like Lizzie Stewart's work, and then there's pieces of embroidery which kind of blend text and image together, way before like serialized print with like something like Hogarth or kind of newsprint, where you get that kind of sequential storytelling with image and text. So there's kind of a real breadth of historic and contemporary things, and weird and like evocative, like kind of narrative pieces. It's really fun space.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really excited to see that stuff. I forgot that was in it as well. So in terms of the artwork itself, I guess we should talk about that. I mean, that's the main thing. Kat, what is in there from you, and what is like a favorite other piece by somebody else that you've seen in there?
Oh, goodness. Well, I chose to show some pages from Follow Me In, my first graphic novel, because that's the only one that was drawn on paper. So I thought it'd be nice to show some actual drawings.
I keep forgetting to say, like, the last thing that probably you and Kristyna did with Avery Hill, apart from this exhibition, was the launch party for both your books, because for Retrograde Orbit and Follow Me In, because they both came out at the same time, didn't they? And we had the launch party. It was a full bubble, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Travelling Man in Leeds, and then we did another one at Gosh in London.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good circularity there.
Yeah. Yes, both those books are in the show. So yeah, but because I just draw the line art, I drew the line art in pencil, and I did the rest of it digitally, including making the panels and speech bubbles, and adding texture and all sorts, and color digitally. So I've got prints of my pages as well to show the finished thing. And in terms of what other piece I really love the Tom Humberstone section, just because I absolutely love seeing people's work really spelled out, in stages of how they've done it. And also I love that thing of seeing decisions that were made, like changes that were made to the page. He's got one page which was, I think, maybe the very first page, or it's a section opener, where he's just made all these little tweaks as it's kind of progressed, and I just think that's really fascinating to be able to see. So I guess that's my favorite.
Stella?
Yeah, so yeah, my book Retrograde Orbit is in the show, and it's a weird book because, well, it's a great book, read it if you want, but it's weird in terms of me creating stuff, because it's literally the project that I started working digitally on. So I think I bought my iPad Pro, which I've like inked everything since on, like during our like making the first few pages on the cover. So I think one of the last things that I inked traditionally for comics was the cover, which is in the show, and then the rest of the pages are kind of digital pencils, inks, and color. So it's this kind of like in terms of my process of like how I make images and comics, it's kind of an interesting. It feels like when I kind of figured out my process from like old school to new school. So there's a bit of traditional and lots of kind of more digital pages in there. And then I think my favorite piece is the J. Webster Sharp stuff. It's so mesmerizing to see that in person, and I really like weird black and white high contrast artwork anyway. It's what got me into comics, so like really weird gross comics were my favorite. So like Joe Coleman stuff and Virgil Finlay, like kind of old school sci-fi like scratchboard stuff and like pen and ink stuff. So really amazing, like weird art, and seeing those, they're kind of drawn at A3, they're really big, and the hyper detail of the hyper grotesque violence appeals to a particular part of my brain, which I think they're my favorite.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably, well, stuff I haven't really seen in real life, so the stuff I'm most excited to see is probably Claire Scully's little drawings, to see the originals of those. I'm quite interested to see Owen's from the Hard Switch as well, because I'm sure they're very beautifully done as well. And then the kind of stuff I sent in, I sent in a lot of Tilly stuff, but also stuff like the Maleficium cover and the Megatherium Club cover, just some of like the really old historic stuff that that we sent in. It's just very cool that stuff is going to be on display in a big exhibition. And I guess just to sum up is, I kind of keep taking what we're doing for granted here a little bit and just not really thinking about it. But now it's actually happening. It's like, wow, this is really an amazing, wonderful thing to be able to put on, and just, to get comics out there, but also, I guess, for all of us and for all the creators involved, is most of us have never been involved in anything remotely like this. So it's kind of one of those pinch me moments where you keep thinking, oh wait, this is actually happening. It's on for like 6 months in a major gallery. And to quote Harry Styles, like, things like this don't happen to people like us.
Yeah, it's lovely that it's happening there too with the Thought Bubble connection. There's a lot of support for comics in the area. Karen's created these little extra bits at the last minute of the exhibition, like a zine, 2 little zine collections that she's made with the help of Kristyna. You know the person from Leeds Zine Library, is it?
It's Scarborough Zine Library. I think someone called Nathan from Scarborough Zine Library, I think, if I'm remembering that conversation correctly. But yeah, they've kind of curated a lot of kind of self-published stuff, which, doesn't have a barcode, which is definitely like the precursor or kind of gateway into how people start making comics with the kind of weird self-published stuff. So there is a curated collection of that at the back, which has some of my zines in as well, because Lord knows I make a lot of them.
Yeah, and when we were up there, we also met up with Reggie from Destination Venus, we were just all talking about the passion for comics and how nobody really makes a great deal of money out of doing it, but everyone loves it so much, and that's a really nice thing. And how when Thought Bubble came to Harrogate, he was just thrilled and has been really pushing the connections between, the Mercer and the festival and trying to make things happen as well. So it's just a really nice group of people who've all come together to help us do this. It's lovely.
Yeah, we should really credit Martha Julian as well, who kind of did the intro in the first place and kind of suggested it, but also Karen Southworth at the gallery, who has just been amazing from what I can tell. I mean, Kat, you've been working really closely with her, but like her drive behind it, getting the funding, seeing the potential of it, and just and wanting to work with us is just incredible, really.
Yeah, it's her enthusiasm, because some people that work in the fine arts obviously don't know much about comics and would maybe not know what to make of it, but she's been so enthusiastic. And just when the zine stuff started to happen just a couple of weeks ago, she just said, I've gone zine mad, I've just ordered hundreds. She's so enthusiastic about all of it, which is lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we finish, what else are you guys up to? What comics are you making at the moment?
I'm waiting for my next graphic novel to come out, which comes out in January. That's taken me years and years and years to do, but it's finally almost there. That's coming out with Fantagraphics, and there'll be a French edition as well, which is really exciting.
What's it called?
It's called The Pass. Yeah, I'm just waiting for, I think probably within a month, I'll have a copy in my hands that I can see. So that's the point I'm at the moment.
Yeah, just for listeners, I did know what it was called. I was just pushing Kat to name it.
Let's just say it.
So people could actually search for it on Amazon.
And I'm working on a self-published comic for Thought Bubble, literally inking it as we speak. So I'm kind of down to the line with that, but just kind of finding space between being in demand illustrator, you know. So you kind of have to carve out time for weird comics. And it is weird. It's called My New Hobby Craves Violence, and it's about getting so into a new hobby or interest that it becomes deadly. And it's about a weird online botany forum and a sinister houseplant, and how those two things, with a certain keen mindset with getting obsessed with things, can be quite destructive.
Excellent. Save me a copy, please. I'll
Okay,
swing by
deal.
it. I'm only at Full Bubble very briefly and with a child, but I will try and come by.
I'll throw one at you. Don't
Thank
let
you.
the child read
Yeah,
it.
perfect. Okay, that's great, guys. So for everyone, you can go and see the exhibition at the Mercer Gallery in Harrogate. If you go to Full Bubble, it's literally next door. And it's open from 9:30 a.m. until I think 5 p.m. Most days, apart from Mondays. So yeah, definitely do that. And thanks everyone for listening.